Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room, a show that endeavors to stretch its lens across Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, the entire global village at times. I'm Robin Adair, and across our own local global village is the that massive globalist, the Croatian sensation, the man that Croatians line the streets for when he occasionally goes for a holiday there, John Jurisic. And John, so much feedback going on still on the story we did a couple of weeks ago on the Bayview Roundhouse, and both pro and con.
It's We have a ton of fun doing the show, Robin, and there's a lot of feedback now. There are people who write to us and comment on Facebook. That was not something that was expected from the front end, but certainly we get a lot of comment. And last week there was a ton on the Bayview Roundhouse development. We dug in deep a couple of weeks ago back on this ambitious plan to build 9 towers, some of them reaching nearly 30 stories. This is all part of a plan to add density so that businesses will be drawn to set up shop in the old E&N Roundhouse. 1,900 new residents are being planned to be added to the Songhees area in Vic West. Developer Ken Mariash wants to dramatically expand. And now it's up to a public hearing on rezoning whether on this property to decide any next steps. And we've certainly heard lots of responses from both sides of this debate on the VRR.
It's really great how many people have actually come up and commented and given me their thoughts on this. Out in the neighborhood, going for a walk with the dog, talking to neighbors, both pro and con. Some people say, well, they should be building more density, especially in areas where there already is density. We need more housing. We need to have somewhere for our young people to live, people who work in the service sector, who work in tourism. There's this demand, more people coming all the time. On the flip side, there are people who are just as adamant that we don't want to lose the things that are important and precious about Greater Victoria, the beautiful streets, the beautiful homes, the wonderful neighborhoods. And finding that balance is the trick. The fear of people who want to preserve is that somehow Victoria could become the next Vancouver or Toronto. I find that a little hard to believe, but you have to be preventative to make sure that that doesn't happen. Supporters of Bayview, of course, talk about the need for condos, rentals, other forms of housing, and the flood keeps arriving. So we thought, well, who do we speak to? Who do we talk to about this? Well, the real estate agents that we've spoken to all have a very firm feeling. And as usual, our good friend Kevin Singh has something to say, both pro and con, about what's happening with our development. Is there a comfortable middle ground in your mind?
Absolutely. I think we can have both, but I think it requires people generally to take note that the world isn't going to stop just for Victoria. I mean, we have to understand that in order for this economy to continue to grow and for us to be able to provide for seniors who are retiring and kids who need schools and all the other infrastructure that goes with living in a decent part of the world, that we have to be able to accommodate both. And I think planning is really an important part of all of this. I think planning isn't about a whole bunch of people saying they don't like things. Planning is about people collaborating and getting to what's really needs to happen. We have to get away from politicians deciding that they're going to deal with housing every election cycle. Housing is a 50-year plan plus. And if we don't get some smart politicians in all the municipalities, and one day my dream is 3 municipalities, then we're going to be doing this rat in the wheel forever. The federal government needs to step up. They need to put on their big boy pants and force the province and the municipalities to get smarter about housing. And I think that the Conservative platform of tying housing into infrastructure funding is a smart way to go. So I think people need to get off their little hobby horses and think bigger picture. And I think we'll be a lot happier, and we need to get onto this housing yesterday, not tomorrow.
this isn't just a Victoria issue. This isn't just a BC issue. This is right across Canada. In fact, arguably the number one issue for our communities is lack of affordable housing. Rapid development and this kind of increased densification is is being debated right across the province and the country. And as I've said, the number one issue. I personally think, I really do, I really positively think there needs to be more density in targeted areas. While a lot of leafy neighborhoods and heritage buildings, they can still be protected. There's got to be a way to find a balance, but we still need a lot more housing. We need our young families to find a way to live in our communities. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this story, Robin.
I talked to somebody on the weekend. They said the best solution is to stop the ferry service, stop people from coming here. Just block it off. You can have some freighters come over with supplies, but no people. Just block it all off. Well, it doesn't make any sense. That's not going to happen. And it's interesting to me how Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, has been backtracking on the federal commitment to do something about housing. He fired his housing minister not that long ago. Now he's saying that housing is not a federal responsibility. Well, the federal government could make sure that there was money available as incentives for new housing construction. There are things that the federal government could do. Be
Absolutely.
supportive on this file. So we'll
Yeah.
keep a close eye on it, John, but we're going to move now to another topic that's also high on the list of things that have a lot of people concerned, and that is the chronic shortage of doctors. And, right now it's 1 in 4 in the province don't have a family doctor. It's even higher on the South Island. Almost 40% of people on the South Island do not have access to a family general physician. And that's just no good. There's people banging their heads all over the place because they can't get in to a primary care center. They can't get any kind of access unless they're willing to go down to a hospital and stand for hours or sit for hours or whatever they're doing for hours, waiting in the emergency to go and see something that probably would be treatable in a doctor's office. And, we are hearing there's more doctors coming, more education, more recruitment, more foreign doctors, but it's not happening fast enough. And we decided to turn again to an outside source to see what they think of what's going on here. We've talked to her before, Dr. Jennifer Lush, who has lots of thoughts on what's happening and what needs to happen. Let's zoom her in. Once again, joining us in the Victoria Rumble Room for the first time actually in a few weeks' time is Jennifer Lush, Dr. Jennifer Lush, a family physician in Victoria, and it's great to have you back on the program.
Thanks so much, Robin. Happy to be here.
And so much to talk about. Let's start with last February when we heard the province rolling out this new compensation plan for MDs, family physicians, where they were going to be able to help with overhead, get some more money for their services, encourage doctors to continue practicing family medicine, bringing some of them back into the fold, hopefully. Also, announcements of new medical school seats, so we have more students in the system, and then talk of more doctors being enticed to come to BC from other provinces and from other countries. So at this point, after this rollout has taken place, in your opinion, how's it going?
Well, certainly the new payment model was a big step in the right direction. And I think generally family physicians in the community were very appreciative of it. And, it's sort of given them a little burst of extra encouragement because things were pretty grim. And so it has made practicing medicine more sustainable. It's easier to keep the doors open and the lights on and to be able to continue to care for our patients. And there's been excellent uptake of the model. And I think that speaks to the fact that, it was long overdue, and family physicians being compensated for all their time, is reasonable. And people are happy to see that occurring. What hasn't changed, though, is we still have a severe shortage of family physicians. We need to be recruiting more family physicians, and we also need to make the job more sustainable and more efficient. And so that those are the things that now we need to we can't just sort of think, okay, well, we've attended to the family medicine crisis. That was a big step in the right direction, but there's still lots of work that needs to be done in order to get those 1 million British Columbians that don't have a family physician attached to a primary care provider.
So great to have you back on the show, Jennifer. You and I and Robin have been advocating for this issue, oh gosh, now a year and a half at least, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
And you and I have been on the legislative lawns numerous times helping advocate for these issues. You've really raised a lot of alarm bells regarding our medical system. Congratulations. Much appreciated. We have a situation in BC where 1 million people don't have a family doctor, just as you alluded to. 1 in 4 people on the South Island don't have a family physician. Minister Adrian Dix promised that people would be placed on a waiting list to get either a doctor or a nurse practitioner in the near future. Is this working?
So I'll actually correct you. In the Greater Victoria area, it's 38% of people don't have a family physician. So it's actually
Oh my
higher than one
gosh.
in four. Yeah. That is a recent statistic that was provided. And what's disturbing is that actually hasn't changed since we started this advocacy work 18 months ago. So my comment when there was the press announcement a while ago about the registry was, okay, it's all well and good to have a registry, but let's not celebrate the registry until we have the family physicians and the nurse practitioners in place to attach the people who are on the registry too. People get excited, they put their name down in good faith, thinking, well, this is going to solve my problem, only to then sit there for a couple of years and nothing happening. I think the registry is a good idea in principle, but I think we need to be not celebrating the registry until we have addressed the other issues with supply of primary care providers.
Still have a lot of people, in short, that don't have a physician or a family practitioner at this point.
Exactly. Yes, we still have a severe shortage. My question to Minister Dix, if I had the opportunity, would be, well, how many people have actually been attached from the registry? Let's see those numbers. Let's see the difference that's being made. And if we aren't getting significant numbers attached, then what are we doing to get more family physicians in the community practicing?
So I guess the government's trying all kinds of different ways and different levers to improve the situation. One of the ones they've reached out to, which I know in the doctor circles is a little controversial, is raising the stakes for pharmacists across the province. And they are being given an expanded role now. They can dispense medications on a longer list of ailments. And physicians, of course, are highly trained. So do you see problems with that scheme?
Yeah, I can see multiple problems with that scheme. I mean, I think it's probably a necessary stopgap given how many people don't have family physicians. At least now they can go to their pharmacist and hopefully get minor ailments treated without having to line up for hours outside of UPCC. So in that way, it's a good idea, I guess, for those who aren't attached. But I worry about serious conditions going misdiagnosed. So perhaps that blood in your urine is not a urinary tract infection. Perhaps it's actually bladder cancer. And pharmacists aren't set up, nor do they have the training for diagnosis and physical exam. Again, it's a necessary stopgap. But if we had an effectively functioning primary care system, we wouldn't need stopgaps. We would, and so I think right now, unfortunately, the Ministry of Health is kind of in crisis mode and they're putting out fires one at a time rather than stopping and thinking, okay, what's an organized approach? What is going to benefit all aspects of the healthcare system in a cost effective manner so that we're not wasting healthcare dollars and we get British Columbians cared for in the way that they need and deserve to be cared for?
Sort of a nice segue into my question, Jennifer. I'm a fellow very much interested in technology, always have been, have run companies based on that like desire and on the Rumble Room actually do the technology side. So very interested in this new online system where you can register your ailment and make an appointment to see a local pharmacist, which certainly looks to be very convenient on the surface. Yet we don't have the same registration system to see a doctor at an urgent primary care center, otherwise known as UPCC. Instead, you have to stay on the phone, sometimes for long periods, and still not get an appointment. Why isn't there an online registration system for this?
It's a good question. I mean, even the online registration system for the pharmacists, I'm a bit skeptical about in that it feels like, again, the government micromanaging a situation that was actually working just fine. It would probably be a lot more efficient if people could just walk into their local pharmacy and get their problem dealt with. as opposed to having to register through a government website. It's a little bit like the flu vaccine rollout last year was far more complicated and more time consuming than it had ever been before, because the government required that we register for flu shots through their computer system, whereas family physicians have been doing it for years and pharmacists for years. Without the government bureaucracy. And I'm curious how much these online registration systems are costing to implement and maintain, and would that money be better directed elsewhere? With regard to the UPCCs, they have failed. They have been a hugely costly experiment. They have not attached patients to primary care providers, and they are a far more costly way of delivering care for these medical situations than the traditional walk-in clinics were. They drove walk-in clinics out of business. And meanwhile, they see so few patients in a day. I would love to know the healthcare dollars spent per patient in a UPCC compared to in a traditional family doctor's office. I can guarantee you it's far, far higher. And so again, it's about responsible spending of our healthcare dollars and ensuring we get our maximum, bang for our buck, so to speak, because we have only finite dollars. We have overwhelming demand. And so we need to be, spending our healthcare dollars wisely.
And more on the fact that it takes so long to see a doctor, and sometimes it gets so frustrating, and a lot of people are frustrated where they go down to emergency at the hospitals. Increasingly, that's what people are doing, is going down to emergency in the hospitals, and now the hospitals are overwhelmed with huge waiting lists, and the doctors are emergency doctors, and they're not really set up to be doing this. This is a sort of thing that should be done in a primary care center. So when you have doctors now actually openly protesting and writing open letters and saying this is just not supposed to be this way, I don't know what the solution is. It could reach a crisis proportion in terms of getting the services needed for people who are seriously hurt or in serious need of help at an emergency. So, I mean, what's the solution here?
I don't think it could reach. I think it has reached a crisis proportion, right? We are seeing emergency rooms closed. We are seeing people losing their lives because they couldn't access emergency care in a timely fashion. And so, yes, we need to take, significant steps, and there's no room for time delays. We need to make these changes now. Emergency rooms are overwhelmed because they are doing primary care as well as emergency room work. So we need to offload the emergency rooms. We are burning out our emergency room physicians and nurses at a higher rate than ever before, because it is very hard to continue trying to care and provide people the life-saving care that they know they deserve in these suboptimal conditions where, they're treating patients in hallways and they know that patients are waiting for hours in the waiting room, but prior to being seen. And that's not good for anyone. That's not good for the patients, and it's not good for the healthcare providers. So, there's issues like national licensure, which is being worked on by our national, medical association, that might help. But there are also steps that could be taken provincially to try to get people on the ground caring for patients faster. We have internationally trained physicians in British Columbia who have been desperately wanting to practice in BC for years and simply can't get licensed. So the government needs to work with the college to streamline licensing of these qualified healthcare practitioners who are now working in non-medical roles because they cannot be licensed to practice in BC. BC has a reputation across Canada of being one of the hardest jurisdictions to get licensed to practice medicine in, and we have to ask ourselves, why is that? I feel like that would be low-hanging fruit, right? Like let's streamline licensing for physicians who are coming from other provinces or other countries. Yes, make sure they're qualified, of course, but that can be done in a timely fashion. It doesn't take 18 months, 2 years, 4 years to determine whether someone's qualified or not.
But we're being told that's happening. We're being told this is actually taking place. So it's still taking way too long, in your opinion.
Well, the last I heard, I mean, again, that would be a good question for Minister Dix and the College of Physicians and Surgeons would be, how long is it taking to get somebody licensed? Why is a fully qualified family physician from Australia who has reciprocal, recognition and training between the College of Family Physicians of Canada and the RACGP in Australia, they're board certified. Why does it take them so long to get licensed to practice here in BC? And can you show us that you've reduced that licensing time, since your commitment to improve the situation in healthcare in British Columbia?
Brutal. This is just brutal. I'm so pissed. Final question for me. And by the way, thanks. This has been incredibly informative.
Thank
To
you.
have the Victoria Rumble Room jump into what's probably a painfully busy day for you is much, much appreciated. When the pandemic hit, the government set up a fee service for doctors who diagnosed online or on the phone. That continues today. So, question: should this service continue, like perpetually? And do you see it further expanding in the future?
Well, certainly, I hope it does continue. I will tell you that it increases our capacity to be allowed to care for our patients virtually, whether by telephone or by video conference. I can see more patients in a day if I have access to phone consults than if I have to bring every single patient into my office. So again, in a time of crisis, when we have a severe family physician shortage, we should be using each of our family physicians to the maximum of their, potential. And so to take away the virtual visit fees would be an extreme misstep and a big step backwards in terms of trying to improve primary care in this province. Other provinces have pulled the virtual visit fees, and so to BC's credit, they haven't yet. But I certainly hope that those fees are allowed to continue, because you will see your wait times to get primary care increase. And it will be harder to see your family physician, if you're lucky enough to have one, if the government pulls virtual visit fees.
It's just so great to see you getting out and advocating and still practicing medicine, because that's so important. I know that my wife and I moved back to Victoria 4 years ago after some time in Vancouver, away from the island. And we still haven't been able to get a family doctor. We finally have thrown our hands in the air. We're keeping our doctors in Vancouver. And I spoke to my doctor there just last week, who told me he's got patients all over the province, people who used to live in Vancouver who've now moved all over the province and are keeping him as a doctor because they can't find another physician. It's becoming a satellite operation to become a medical doctor in this province. It's sort of a different scenario than we could have imagined even just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to ask yourself, is that the quality of care that you deserve? If you have acute abdominal pain, you can't get in to see your family doctor when he's on the lower mainland and you're here on the island. So where do you go? You go to the emergency room. And there we are, we're, in that catch 22. Whereas if we had an adequate supply of family physicians in every community, you could be cared for in your local community. You could get your urgent medical issues dealt with by your primary care provider, who then would be offloading the emergency room, leaving them available for the people who need the critical care. So it's so multi-layered and so systemic. But I think the encouraging thing is, it would be easy to be very despairing, but the encouraging thing is, over the last 18 months, we are having far more conversations about healthcare, and being able to identify the problems is the first step to finding the solutions. So I think continued pressure on our elected representatives and our officials, physicians organizations and that sort of thing, to continue working for improvements is the way out of this crisis.
Well, we certainly hope the physicians like Dr. Jennifer Lush keep up the pressure, and we hope also advocacy groups like BC Healthcare Matters keep the noise going. They've been very effective, and we haven't heard from Camille Curry for a while in a big way. Maybe it's time for another rally down at the legislature. Certainly, this is something that is important, and it is not solved. And John, we do need solutions.
You're right. These issues are not going away, and they're not being solved. To reemphasize what you're just saying, we again encourage the government to embrace doctors' assistants to operate in BC. This profession is now assisting in doctors' offices across the rest of the country, but not in BC. Doctors would welcome this help. We would all welcome this help. But so far, the province has been resistant. I don't get it. We should be using every tool available to fix our broken healthcare system. And the Rumble Room will certainly keep shining a light on this problem for as long as it takes.
And we have physician assistants in BC attached to the armed forces. And there are trained people ready who would be happy to move into civilian work. They're doing that across the rest of the country. Physician assistants work in physicians' offices. They report to physicians, and physicians are very keen on this. It's not at the expense of nurse practitioners. Nurse practitioners also play an important role. It's not a competition between the two. We need more people on the ground across the way. Anyway, John, with that, I'd just like to take a moment to again thank over 1.2 million people who've tuned into the Rumble Room over the last 2 years. We can't tell you how much we appreciate your support of this show and encourage you, in the future to become a member of the Rumble Room family, to subscribe and follow us on a regular basis. And, just to remind you, John and I, we're just doing this because we enjoy doing a show. We're not doing this as a paid employee situation. We're doing this because we think it's for the betterment of the community, and we think it's something that we can offer from our years of experience in business, with the chamber, and just living in this community for a long time. So we encourage you to please continue your support and write us if you have comments on things that we're doing on the show. And John, maybe again, you could remind people how they can jump on board with the Rumble Room.
Absolutely. I always, when people say stuff like infinity, or we see pictures of space shots from these NASA cameras, it all loses its relevance, doesn't it? 1.2 million viewers, cumulative viewers. Somehow, you say it, and that's a lot of people have watched the Rumble Room, and I really double back on what you've just said. Thank you to everybody. Okay. And the way they're doing that is a multitude of channels. And we certainly, Facebook is that kind of mothership of ours, tons of viewers. We have viewers on Twitter. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. That's now called X. Oh boy. When you have too much money, that's what you go about doing, rebranding things that work. We are also on YouTube. I had several folks call me last week, and they're just discovering the Rumble Room. And they say, where can we see all your videos? I send them to the YouTube channel, which has almost 330 videos there right now. And of course, we are active on Facebook news groups. We interact all over the place with especially our clips. And we are on Instagram and TikTok. And those collective views, 1.2 million.
Wow. We also have our news and views. You can go to news and views to see some other thoughts and some other ideas from ourselves and some of the people that we work with for this show.
Yes, thank you. We're all over the place. If you haven't heard about us, well, no, you really should be these days. Okay, so how many more times can I thank the viewers? One more time. Thank you. And with that, I remain your Croatian sensation with a dabbling of Italian bloodline. My name is John Jurisic.
Well, you may dibble and dabble, John, but you're still a star on this show. I'm Robin Adair, and rumble on.